Assignment writing isn't really something people enjoy a huge amount, and they also don't really like talking about it a huge amount, but I guarantee you, if you follow these 3 tips, you're going to be on your way to having a successful assignment. What's up guys, welcome to another episode of GetPsyched, and today we're going to be looking at 3 tips for successful assignment writing. Now these tips can be relevant for psychology assignments, for psychology students. They can also be really relevant for people writing assignments in other topics as well, so hopefully you guys find this helpful. Tip number 1. The first thing to do is to be conscious of being critical of the literature that you research in order to write your assignment. Now, what does being critical mean? Basically what it means is you review the articles and the literature that you've researched in order to write your assignment, and you give a critical account of all of the points made. Now the first thing I would say here is that being critical is not just being negative about everything that an author says in an article. What it means is that you really engage with the literature, that you engage with the articles that you're reading, and you pick up on points you think the author could write about better, but you also want to highlight some of the things that you agree with the author about in that article. The first thing I think you should consider with this is that when you have literature in front of you that's relevant for your assignment, you want to be highlighting different points. What I normally like to do is highlight the points I agree with the author on in green, and I also highlight the points I disagree with the author in red. I just read the article straight through. That's what I do as I read it through, and at the end of the article I make 2 columns of notes. The first column is all the points that I agree with the author on that I've highlighted, and the second column is all the points that I disagree with the author on. This way I can create a full consensus of being critical with that one article. I've got points that I disagree with the author on, and I've got points that I like about what the author has said that I'm going to use in my assignment. Now, as I've said, being critical is not just picking up on every point the author makes and saying that they're wrong. It is fully engaging with the literature that's in front of you. So with that article, I've got my good points and I've got my bad points. And what I'm going to do is, on the bad points, I'm going to expand on those, and I'm going to say why I disagree with the author here. Maybe he's not given enough research, or maybe she's not backed it up with enough literature, or maybe the research that they've looked at or even conducted has got holes in it somewhere. I'm going to expand on that, and I'm going to develop an argument as to why there's a need for further research, or why it's important that my assignment is being written in the first place. I'm then also going to revert to the points that I agree on and expand a little bit more on those and explain why I agree with these points. Once you've done that, you've given a full critical analysis of that one paper. You can continue to do that. I know that sounds like a lot of work, but it really isn't when you get used to it. You can do it for each paper, and that way you're not going back constantly rereading papers again and again. Being critical in an assignment is absolutely vital, and it's where 90% of students lose out on marks. If you can show a full critical analysis of the literature that you've read and apply it into your assignment, you are 95% of the way there to getting a good mark in that assignment. Tip number 2. Understand and answer the question. Again, this sounds really basic, but it's where a lot of students lose out on marks in assignments. The main point I want you to consider here is that you should be constantly reading the question. That doesn't mean that you read the question once or twice or 3 times at the start of your assignment and then start writing for weeks. It means you should be constantly going back to the question, reading over the question, considering what you're writing and what you're arguing for is actually answering the question, and answering every part of that question. What often happens is that people think that they have fully understood the question. They've read it once, they've read it twice, they've even read it 3 times, but as they continue writing, they start drifting off and they get away from actually what the question is asking them. It's common that students get carried away and start arguing for something that's really not relevant to what's being asked. This is not a trap you want to fall into. It's something that markers really look for. Is one of the key things they look for, along with critical analysis, is have you actually answered the question? You would be amazed how many students write great essays, but they haven't answered the question. I've got a little video just about to come up, and I'm going to show you just a really basic demonstration of what I do when I have a question for an essay. I quite like to break the question down into different pieces. I've just made up an essay example here, and I'm going to run you through that tip. So as you can see here, what I'm doing is I'm breaking the question up. Doing it this way really allows you to highlight what you need to focus on. You're losing marks if you neglect just one part of the question. What I then do with this is I go from the bottom to the very top. So the very bottom section here, you'll see is high school and secondary school. The next part is European young men. That immediately highlights to me that I need to stay away from literature in North America or Asia, for example. So I then continue my way up I'm looking at the impact of stereotypes. I need to consider a little bit about what impact means. It doesn't actually say anything about it being negative or positive impact. My advice here is to spend a good amount of time on this and really understand the question better. The last thing you want to do is to go back to the question toward the deadline of your essay and realize that there's massive aspects that you've not answered. So make sure that you do this at the beginning and throughout. Tip number 3. This one is really important and it's often overlooked. This tip is structure, making sure that you have a good skeleton structure and that you're developing your structure throughout the process of writing your assignment. Structure is vital, and like I said, it's often overlooked because people go straight for literature. They want to find as many articles as they possibly can and they want to get as many words down on paper. That makes sense because if you've got a 2,500 word, a 3,000 or 5,000 word essay, if you can get 1,000 words done in the first day, that's going to make you feel really good. But those words might not be of the best quality and they might not be applicable to your question or your structure. My advice here is to, after you've understood the question, is to give a structural skeleton to what you want your essay to be like. You need to know what you're going to talk about and in what part of the essay you're going to talk about each thing. Try to tell a bit of a story as well. It makes the essay flow so much better and it's much easier for the marker to read. Put yourself in the marker's shoes, for example. They may have 30 different assignments to mark. And if they come to yours and it's really hard to get through and they don't understand what you're trying to argue and they think different parts should be in different places, that's going to really irritate them. The best thing that you can do is to make it easier for a marker who's probably gone through numerous assignments already. If you can make that assignment readable and easy to manage, that's only going to be a good thing. Now, what I've done here is I've given you a bit of a structure to the essay question that we showed you earlier on stereotypes. Now, I used our previous tip of breaking the question down into different sections to develop this structure a little bit better. Now, as you can see, I've spent a bit of time breaking each section down. I would probably go back to this consistently. This is a pretty rough skeleton of a structure that I would get. This is the kind of thing that I would do probably on the first day of getting the essay question. Within the first 1 and 2 weeks, I would be working on this especially. I would even be working on this up to the deadline of the assignment. It's okay to be moving things about, so don't worry about that up to the deadline of the assignment, but you want to make sure that your structure is always there and you're always reverting back to it. As you can see throughout, I've been highlighting that I have to show critical analysis in each aspect. The first part of the question asks for an appreciation of the theoretical and empirical literature relevant to my topic. It's asking me for a critical analysis in this question, and it's asking me to appreciate that critical analysis based on the theoretical and the empirical literature. That basically means, what does theory say about what stereotypes do to people? And empirical literature basically means what studies have been conducted that prove that theory or disprove that theory. And as I said, I'm going to give critical accounts of each of those. There's a few points that I've highlighted as well that I really want to make sure I'm picking up on. At no point in this question does it say that stereotypes are good or bad for people. It basically just says impact. So this is a really interesting aspect I could come towards on the assignment. I could give critical accounts of the ways in which stereotypes have negative effects on European young men in high school. And I could also give critical accounts of the ways that stereotypes benefit young men in European high schools. So there we go, guys. That's my main 3 tips for conducting a really good assignment. Making sure that you give critical analysis, making sure that you understand and answer the question, and making sure that your structure is sound. Guys, if you follow these tips, you're going to be on your way to a great assignment. Thanks so much for watching Get Psyched again, guys. Make sure that you hit like, make sure that you comment on the videos, and make sure that you subscribe. Today we've been looking at assignment writing, but we're going to have more upcoming content weekly. So thanks again, guys, for tuning in.